My name's Kellianne Milliner. I'm the Associate Director of Athletics. I'm from the Department of Athletics at Westchester University. My colleagues and I are here today to talk to you about how to have a sports performance program on a budget or with limited resources. We're going to share with you how our model of shared responsibility, creative use of resources, human and otherwise, and various funding sources have allowed us to build a program that works for several departments and is truly student-centered. So I'm going to provide a little bit of background about how everything got started, where we are now, and how we have really developed our sports performance arm of our program. In athletics, we focused on areas that we had guidance in, so from the NCAA, for example, and how we've been able to grow and change that model to enhance our program, as well as develop and grow in the area of sports performance. John Smith is a faculty member in the Department of Sports Medicine, who also serves as our NCAA Athletics Healthcare Administrator. He'll share how the Department of Sports Medicine works effectively with us in the athletics and assists both students who are in sports med program as well as our student athletes. His area coordinates with strength and conditioning staff in athletics as well to work with preventative care and rehabilitation. Chris Karpinski, faculty and chair of the Department of Nutrition, will share how she has built and grown the sports nutrition program through various creative ways. Challenges, be them financial or other resources based or met with strategies that have worked for Chris, and by extension to everybody, all of our students. So here we are. This is our Student Athlete Success Program, which is what we call it at Westchester. When I arrived at Westchester around 14 years ago, there really wasn't any kind of a program for student athletes other than practice, competition, anything kind of off the field or preparation or anything. We had programming, so we would kind of follow the NCAA model of the CHAMPS Life Skills program, which back then was kind of what everybody was trying to do. It was called Challenging Athletes' Minds for Personal Success, or CHAMPS. It was kind of, we had done kind of random things. We'd bring in a speaker here and there. We tried to hit areas that were the focus of the program, which was academics, athletics, career development, personal development, service. But really at its core, it was about balancing academics, athletics, and then personal well-being. So we grew our program by working or really recruiting people from across campus, so other academic departments, the Department of Student Affairs, which athletics is a member of, and we were able to use those professionals and experts to help us provide programming for student athletes. They tailored the programs to the needs and the lifestyles of our students and really kind of put them at times in places where athletes were able to attend to them. So last year we revamped our program a little bit, just worked through the kinks, recruited some other people across campus, and we aligned our program with the Department of Student Affairs. Like I said, we are a member of the Department of Student Affairs. So this is our mission. Student Athlete Success engages, prepares, and inspires student athletes to become leaders through opportunities for personal and professional growth. So looks like leadership-based, which I will say it kind of is, and that was the goal. On its surface, it does seem focused on kind of just leadership, career development, but a deeper dive into the program shows it encompasses a lot more. Forgetting to do this. So our program is a cross-campus model. Like I said, we work with people across campus and we run our programs in other areas of the campus as well. Our 6 program areas are academic success, career development, civic and community engagement, diversity and inclusion, leadership development, and wellness. So we have really focused the programs, like I said, on leadership models and leadership theory. And we do ask that all of our facilitators do share with us, how you are using it. What model did you use that encompasses leadership? Really try to focus on 2, which is the social change model of leadership and the relational leadership model, So, our collaboration with everybody does expose our athletes to other areas of campus, which, if you know anything about student athletes, they tend to kind of stay in one general space, so this was a way to kind of introduce them to other areas and to kind of other people on campus as well. So we offer a variety of programs and opportunities. They can pick and choose what they want to go to, but they're kind of always there. As I mentioned, we do kind of follow the student affairs model, and it also does kind of flow into our university mission as well. So we really did want to build our program off of where we are as a university. So how do we run it? So these are some of the resources that we've been able to come up with, to use. They've always been there, and we've really been able to kind of harness it and really build our program. The human resources, we have graduate assistantships. We use our student athletes, who are members of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and we have subcommittees for these programs. Nutrition majors, which Chris will talk about, sports medicine students, which John will talk about, and then, as I mentioned before, our faculty on campus and professional staff and student affairs who are running and helping us with these programs. So they already work for the university. They already have a vested interest in what we're doing. And we've just been able to use them, collaborate, and really work on these programs. Financially, it's kind of all over the place. So we do have a little bit of university funding. The NCAA does give money to Division II schools at a much smaller level than they may at Division I level, but we do use that funding for our programs. We have had grants, we do our own fundraising, we have outside sponsorship for some of our programs, and what I would call cost sharing, which is like, because this is an example, so if we had a career event and we worked with a career center, they might split the cost on something like that. So that's really a creative way where we don't have to really try and beg and plead for our funding, but we can share our resources and really use other people on campus. So that brings us to the sports performance arm of SAS. So, as I mentioned before, wellness is one of our focus areas. So it's personal wellness, but we look at kind of encompasses everything. But our focus on the sports performance side was really mental health, sports nutrition, and athletic training and strength and conditioning. So there are a lot of connections that we've seen over the years in these areas, you can probably guess. So athletic trainers probably first and foremost work with student athletes, and they might pick up on some mental health issues, so they would work with a counseling center. So they might also see eating disorders, so they might talk to the Department of Nutrition. Or strength and conditioning, working obviously with rehabilitation with athletic trainers, or even strength and conditioning coaches get a lot of questions about, PEDs and things like that, so they might work with the Department of Nutrition to discuss those things. So there's a lot of connections, a lot of collaboration, and we've been able to really work together. And we've done is formed a small committee on our campus of John, Chris, myself, strength and conditioning, and counseling to talk about these things and things that are going on, with our student athletes, and then we can kind of work on the issues and talk about them. So I'm going to speak briefly about the mental health aspect. The NCAA Sports Science Institute, and I'll just read this, they believe, as we do, mental health is a part of, not apart from, athlete health. The SSI Sports Science Institute provides resource and education on mental health, but we are lucky enough on our campus where we work with our counseling center and the director of the counseling center specifically on our mental health issues for our student athletes. So we've been able to allocate some of that university funding that I talked about before to pay our director of counseling to do individual sessions with our student athletes. She does consults with our athletic staff, so coaches, athletic trainers. She's a connecting point for students to the services, so we have her come and talk to our student athletes several times a year, and some teams will use her to do kind of communication programs or things like that with just specifically with a team. She helps with our support group that we have on campus for our student athletes, and she's been serving on a number of different committees that related to athlete success and well-being. So our student athletes and our coaches know who to contact regarding mental health issues, who to refer to regarding mental health issues. We also screen all of our student athletes in the beginning of the year and sometimes throughout the course of the year for mental health issues. And she's very involved in that, as well as our athletic trainers. So this is an area that we've really tried to focus on this year. As you are well aware, coming from not participating, not being in classes, our students have been really having a hard time, I think, coming back to things. So having somebody there to work with our students has been very helpful. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass it on to John to talk about our athletic training area.
Thanks, Kelly. And thank you to Mid-Atlantic Regional ACSM Conference for inviting us here today. It's great to finally be back. This is my first conference, to be honest, since COVID, March of 2020, so it's good to be here. As Kelly mentioned in the earlier slide, the Counseling Center, specifically Rachel Daltrey, that arm of our sports performance team has evolved as a really critical component with the emphasis that the NCAA and especially our own conference, the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, has put on all of us in the allied health professions. We are really, really lucky to have Rachel. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today to present her component of this arm, but I just really wanted to take one quick minute and just make sure we give her a little shout out because she really does a great job for us. So Westchester University Athletic Training Services. So as Kelly mentioned, I will discuss the athletic training arm of our sports performance team. My goal today is to explain how we use the personnel and the resources available at Westchester in order to maximize the student-athlete experience, and even greater than that, the athletic training student experience. I'm going to speak on three specific areas today. From a personnel perspective, I'll speak on the multiple layers of assistance that we call upon, namely, we have dual-rolled faculty, and it works for us, and one full-time clinician and administrator. We have graduate assistants that play a key role in our service delivery, and then, of course, our athletic training students. I'll speak to our services, and I'll speak to the resources that we have accessed, similar to the way Kelly framed hers up, that really aid us in trying to make the best experience for our student athletes. In order to do this, working from our mission statement probably creates the easiest way to do it. So at Westchester, again, this is the Westchester University Department of Sports Medicine's mission statement. So that first sentence really defines, who we are. So the Westchester Department of Sports Medicine has as its primary role the preparation of students for careers in athletic training and related healthcare fields. At Westchester, we have the oldest athletic training program in the state and what we believe to be the second oldest program in the country. We have a long-standing mission of making the athletic training students' education and clinical experience our top priority. We have two academic programs that run concurrently. We have an entry-level master's as a 3+2 with all the new CADE changes in evolving from an undergraduate to an entry-level master's. But we also have a professional master's degree program that attracts students who are already certified athletic trainers who want to gain an advanced master's degree in sports medicine. So how does this model benefit? Where are the mutual benefits to it? These entry-level athletic training students, as well as the graduate assistants, are a critical component to our service model. The sports medicine department and the athletic training services that the student athlete receives, there's a mutual benefit to both. The entry-level athletic training student is going to have mentorship, supervision, and clinical guidance provided by faculty and graduate assistants right in the room, in the classroom and the athletic training room. The clinical experience is always the priority. Whether on the field, in the athletic training room, the weight room, or traveling with their respective team and their fellow oversight, students are provided an experience to develop their skills while also assisting with the care of the student athletes. This is not work or labor. At all times, we hold that very sacred. It is a clinical experience. The Department of Athletics, on the other hand, benefits from the expanded outreach that we can deliver to the student athlete in the fact that these students, as they learn new skills and develop their skills, they can assist us in the room in the care. So we can touch a greater number of student athletes on more of a personal level. So we kind of sink down, graduate assistants. So, many times graduate assistants are hired at a school and they're put in a high school or they're put in a college setting and they have their fall team and they have their spring team and they're sent over there in August and they don't see the person till May. We try to do the direct opposite. We don't have a lot of funds to pay our GAs great money, but we hold that same premise of holding that clinical experience to a really, really high standard and make that the priority, not only for our entry-level master's students, but those graduate assistants too. In doing that, specific to those graduate assistants, we provide a formal mentorship and supervision relationship any newly certified athletic trainer really deserves to have. My colleague, Nikki Catano, and I, she kind of runs the academic department as well as having release time to take care of our men's basketball team as a clinician. She oversees the academic component of their stay at Westchester. We together meet weekly to provide academic updates, clinical education, and professional development. It's a formal process. We consider this to be a critical component of our attraction to have them come to Westchester University. And it really, really does, we think, provide an experience that really allows them to grow not only as a clinician, but as a professional. So we hold that near and dear. Each GA has a faculty mentor, and that faculty mentor is going to supervise them in the clinical setting. That supervisory relationship prioritizes that GA's clinical growth while also mutually benefiting athletics, where the faculty member is there, even though they're a certified GA, that limited experience, there's a faculty member oversight to ensure the student athlete is safe too. And clinical decisions made in their best interest are always evidence-based and backed up. This is a mutually beneficial relationship between that GA, athletics, specifically athletic health care of the student athlete. Our graduate assistants grow as clinicians, professionals, and leaders, while the Department of Athletics benefits from them as certified athletic trainers. They can legally manage their own team. Because of them, we're able to reach more student athletes, so you kind of start to get the picture. Athletic training students, graduate assistants. Now, the financial impact of this, which Kelly is always concerned about, right? We've never really measured it. And I think the key there is that both departments recognize the importance of that mutual benefit that athletics get and that we get as a department, and that sports performance model benefiting both parties is ultimately what's really important. Second sentence. Okay. So certified athletic trainers from the Department of Sports Medicine will provide sports medicine services to the student athlete. So Kelly might be sitting there saying, well, geez, that's probably number one for me. And that's okay. It should be, right? Her entire job is about the safety and welfare of the student athlete. And it should be. How do we meet this mission? Despite separate departments, faculty holding dual roles as educators, researchers, and clinicians. That's our next slide. Okay. Whoa, that does not look like that. Bear with me. We'll be able to get through it. So from a personnel standpoint, at Westchester, we have 9 faculty athletic trainers that have dual roles, like I said earlier, as educators, researchers, and clinically active athletic trainers. We have one person, namely myself, whose full-time role and added recently as clinician and administrator with no classroom responsibilities. I provide clinical instruction to graduate assistants, athletic training students. I manage 3 sports throughout the year and travel with 2 of the higher risk ones. So that provides an opportunity for a student to go on the road and gain additional clinical experience. And those were with football and rugby. I also manage all components of our athletic training services, so budget, inventory, facilities, staffing. Pretty much I am the liaison to athletics as it pertains to sports medicine and athletics. And it's really become, really only strengthened that sports performance model for us. The purpose of my position is the critical communication necessary to make this work and the necessity to oversee athletic training students in their full immersion clinicals. So we'll kind of get to that in a little bit. So twofold. So when I was brought on, athletic training was evolving from an undergraduate program to an entry-level master's. So they saw the need as part of that entry-level master's, students were going to have full immersion clinicals. They come to their clinical experience just like I come to work in the morning. So they needed someone who could help within the university on campus to take care of those students and suffice for a full immersion clinical. The release time provided to our athletic training faculty, it amounts to 2.25 really full-time equivalent athletic trainers, okay? So those 9 athletic trainers are getting release time to assist in the room, over a semester. If you total all the release time up between fall and spring for those full-time faculty athletic trainers, it's the equivalent of 2.25 athletic trainers. So in reality, we're trying to service close to 600 student athletes, like 580 student athletes, with 2.25 and 8 graduate assistants. So it gets very interesting, and that's kind of the purpose of today. Again, my purpose, excuse me, by making the dual model work and make it the priority, we're able to provide the mentorship, the supervision, and the oversight and clinical expertise for our students, while also providing an optimal level of care for our student athletes. RGAs, I cannot say it enough, they play a significant role in the care as well for the student athlete at Westchester. Next, kind of falling down, from a facility standpoint, centralizing our care and something that on a budget is really easy, not easy, but it's important to do. One main facility is our priority, and that allows us to cross-cover. It allows us to maintain a professional lab environment. We, faculty, GAs, and students, are all under one roof. Now, it's just been interrupted by COVID, and we saw firsthand. So we're still under one roof, one building. Unfortunately, COVID caused us to have to socially distance. So we saw firsthand how important that was, in that I had to go down the hall with another faculty athletic trainer, see student athletes. Literally, we took a classroom and converted it to an athletic training room. And that division, even within our own building, the implications of that were really stressful on everyone, because we didn't have everyone under the same roof where we could kind of achieve some of those things I spoke about. My new role as 100% clinical, the evolution of the full immersion clinical I mentioned a little earlier, that's allowed us to provide expanded services into the morning. So before the 3+2 program or the entry-level masters, before the full-time clinical person, we opened up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, with full immersion clinicals, that created the need for morning full immersion clinicals for students. Well, athletics love that, because now their student athletes could be seen in the morning. And that took off really well. We see on average 6 to 8 student athletes in the morning, Um, we, I think I have 5 full immersion students in the fall, and they each had the opportunity to handle student athletes throughout the morning. Really became a great experience, and really grew in popularity over the last couple years. From a service standpoint, so that's that satellite facility, forgive me, Hollinger. There's a fitness center up there that we can take advantage of. There's gymnasiums if you know, in order to kind of hit on all the different domains. So that's really become a big component. And the best part of it is it's right in the middle of campus. Funny story, we didn't have any air conditioning back in August when we started our full immersion clinicals. And you know, the old guy's like, all right, I'm out of here. I can't work under these conditions. And the students were the ones who said, John, we can't move. We're right in the middle of campus. This is right where they want us to be. So they were the ones that really owned it and kept it going. So, but from a service standpoint, we are a full-service athletic training facility. Our athletic training room is completely equipped to deliver exceptional care. We've made an effort to collaborate with other members of our sports performance team, nutrition, strength and conditioning, the counseling center, and even athletics. This has really allowed us to really deliver a complete and unified product. We recently expanded outside of that sports performance team. We kind of reached out to student health. And we leveraged our orthopedic knowledge and expertise to improve our relationship with them. So they have students coming into their facility all the time that maybe have a complicated injury they're not sure about. Or maybe they have an insurance that's not accepted locally. Or maybe they just don't have insurance at all. So they needed our expertise, and it just so happened COVID hit around the same time. We had an additional need for them to step up and step out of their comfort zone a little bit, and it worked out to mutually benefit both of us. As a matter of fact, I just got a call this morning. A wrestler on the club team had a concussion, and they asked about possibly just consulting on that case with the with the student physician up at Student Health. So really has turned into a cool relationship. We've also extended our relationship outside of campus. So our team physician had been in business for himself and kind of jumped around a little bit, but he just joined a larger hospital network. So we've kind of benefited because we work with him. Now we have kind of consultation with a lot of his associates in the bigger hospital network where he works. So that's kind of benefited us. From the standpoint of our local hospital, we made contact with them, not having any idea how excited they were. I had no idea, but they love August. I'm thinking, well, what are you talking about? John, 16,000 students come back to Westchester. We want to embrace you at our local hospital. So how can we help you in sports medicine? Because we get all the business that needs some kind of emergent or hospital care from Westchester University. So they stepped up, not even knowing. How did they step up? They provided us with their online secure website, godsend. We can get results for blood work, radiology. We're connecting with people in the hospital for specialty services to just get maybe just that special backdoor pass sometimes when you need it. So it's really worked out nice. And again, it allows us to communicate a lot easier, having access to all this medical information that's secure. And our team physician likes it because we can communicate with him much easier too. Sorry. So last but not least, so faculty athletic trainers and graduate assistants are really charged with providing the highest quality evidence-based care and education of the student athlete in the domains of injury prevention, injury management, evaluation, diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. So how do we go about that? Well, We take that first box with research. Research is already a component and priority for all faculty and graduate assistants. Everyone is charged with carrying out research projects that have an emphasis on research to clinical practice. Again, that mutual benefit. We want the things we're doing in the room to have great turnaround and implications for the student athlete. Our research on injury prevention, concussion, mental health, and specific rehabilitation techniques has mutually benefited the care of the student athlete while keeping faculty and graduate assistants current. Let's not forget, student athletes make great study participants. Ask any of our GAs. From a research standpoint, our faculty and GAs have qualified for research grants, and those grants have mutually benefited our athletic training education program, the research done by our graduate students and faculty, but also the student athletes. For example, we secured an ultrasonography device that was used for 2 graduate assistant projects so far. We have expanded the use of that out to, as an additional tool for predicting injury severity and also looking at the vascular status following an acute injury. So we're starting to incorporate that into the athletic training education program, but also as part of management of athletic injuries that we see as well. From the standpoint of education, technology grants, internal grants related to classroom or lab technology have allowed us to accumulate tools for research, education, but it's also been nice because we've been able to use those tools and cross them over into the clinical care of the student athlete. For example, we were able to secure an AlterG anti-gravity treadmill for research and clinical education of our athletic training students. We're seeing these more and more in clinics, other colleges, et cetera. So we kind of used that as a means of getting it. We've already produced, I think, 2 projects from our AlterG through graduate assistants and faculty. But while it sits there, it's also become a huge tool for us and has really revolutionized the way we manage lower extremity injury and our ability to kind of objectively measure their progress back to full activity. So really cool device. That AlterG combined with the ultrasound, combined with electrical modalities, combined with software for an isokinetic device, we've probably been able to achieve over like $100,000 in grants right within our own institution to assist in research, but also that crossover. So, any of my colleagues in the room, don't go telling anybody. From an educational, or I'm sorry, where was I? Contemporary expertise, forgive me. So our faculty have a diverse research background. Each one of us brings a unique clinical expertise to the room, and again, that's mutually beneficial for the athletic training student experience while also benefiting the student athlete. The first one that comes to mind for me is our Heat Institute faculty provide clinical expertise on the supplementation of electrolytes necessary to keep student athletes on the field. So when I have a student athlete that I just can't seem to keep on the field during preseason or into the season, I can call on faculty from our Heat Institute, and they're willing to kind of test that student athlete and give them some clinical expertise or advice on how to stay out there. So pretty cool. So takeaways, lessons learned. From the standpoint of resources and personnel specifically, capitalize on the personnel that you have within your staff, but also kind of don't be afraid to go across campus. Student health, your fitness center. There's a lot of people that you can call upon to assist you. very cheap. From the standpoint of facilities, centralizing your facilities, not only morale and your ability to treat more and cover for each other, but the collaboration, the clinical discussion, and the oversight you can provide your students, your grad students, cannot be measured. Investigate creative ways that you can attain internal and external grants for research, but also that might be able to cross over for student-athlete care. AlterG is the best example I can use of where we were able to get a educational, on-campus educational technology fee grant that's really benefited a lot of people. From the standpoint of services, use the expertise of those around you. Try to align yourself with your student health center, strength and conditioning personnel, and our local hospital, as an example. Don't think about how the relationship is going to benefit you. You really have to look at it as how can the relationship mutually benefit both of us at all times. Finally, any opportunity you have to empower students, coaches, to take the lead is really great. Our tennis coach, our men's basketball coach reached out about these proven injury prevention programs for their teams, and they learned them through the athletic trainer, and they incorporated them into their warm-ups in practice, and it empowers the student athletes to kind of take charge of their body, and when you have students involved, it allows them to feel a greater sense of empowerment that they're making a difference. So consider that too. So again, at the end of the day, the focus of our model, never forget the students. So in my case, whether it's the athletic training student or the student athlete, the focus of our model is really always to serve. And we keep that near and dear from our sports performance model. So next, I will bring up Christine Karpinski.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thanks for hanging in there, those of you who have. Wow, look what it does. It does do something to the slides. It definitely does. All right. Okay, so the last arm of the sports performance model that we're going to talk about is sports nutrition. And you might be thinking to yourselves, why are you starting with outcomes? You haven't even told us how to set up a sports nutrition services program. And the reason being, I'm a little shorter than John, the reason being is because as opposed to athletic training or now recently strength and conditioning, sports nutrition is not mandated by the NCAA to be part of a program. And as opposed to mental health, it's really become a real focus with the NCAA over the past year or two. Sports nutrition is kind of the forgotten child. So I like to kind of start out with when people start to think about sports nutrition and how you have to get buy-in is what it comes down to. You have to get buy-in from either athletics or student services, student affairs, excuse me, or the university in general. You're going to have to get buy-in. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been advocating at Westchester for many years and just speaking across the country and doing presentations about this. And I've just been trying to feel my way through of trying to figure out, okay, well, you can't state claim that sports nutrition is going to end up in better records for your athletic teams or make your athletes jump higher or run faster or anything like that, because there's so many factors obviously that come into play. So the idea is, I finally, doing this for enough years, I finally have come up with some things that you could actually measure and say, these are things that sports nutrition can actually have an impact in. They actually do make sense. These are actual outcomes that can be measured. So you can see from the boxes here, luckily the boxes have stayed to the front here, these are things where there are studies out there, there is research out there, evidence that nutrition or lack thereof are actually associated with. So
academic performance. Nutrition is linked to academic performance, to mental health. It's linked to fatigue, to medical conditions, and REDS, or the female athlete triad, which is associated with REDS, certain risk factors, injury prevention, and illness prevention, and or recovery, all right? And then, of course, eating disorder, disordered eating. The thing that's really become kind of a catch, something that's probably more important, something that has become more popular, comes here, is food insecurity. And I apologize, I really don't know what's going on with the slides. Food insecurity. So if we're talking about being something that we can really grab onto, is food insecurity among athletes. And since collegiate athletes is the population that I work with, food insecurity among collegiate athletes is something that we can really make a stand on when it comes to sports nutrition, and why sports nutrition services are really important. Now, as you can see from my slide, as far as published studies or research that's out there, my colleagues and I just did a review, and you can see that there are a fair amount of studies out there on college students, general college students, and food insecurity. But you can see there actually are only 2 published studies. One of them is one that just got published in August with my colleagues and I. We were literally the second published study on collegiate athletes and food insecurity. There was literally only one other published study. So it's brand new. It's an emerging area of research, obviously. But there was a big study called the HOPE report that was not officially published in a peer-reviewed journal, but it's a legitimate report that has been put out there. So there are three resources, and you can see that college student food insecurity and collegiate athlete food insecurity are very similar. So it is something that we can grab onto. It's something that we were going to do the Brown et al. Study. You can see it was done in Division III. We were just about ready to put the Division II survey out in March of last year, and what happened? COVID. So we had to pull it. We literally were going to put it out the week before COVID hit. So unfortunately, we're going to do it this spring. So it'll be interesting to see what happened. But that is something that we can definitely, we're going to plan to definitely use in the future to, again, get grants and so on and so forth. But this is something that we can definitely, that this grabs the attention of universities. When you start talking about food insecurity in collegiate athletes, that grabs their attention. Okay, so let's say that you get buy-in from the athletics department, you get buy-in eventually from the coaches. My slides are really doing funny things up here. What are the type of services that can be offered? And these are things that, that have been done. We've done most of them at Westchester, or there are other things that are out there. So the first thing is a fueling program. I'll talk about our fueling program at Westchester. It's taken many years to develop it, but we have fueling programs where you're feeding your athletes. At Division II and III level, we can't do a training table. We can't afford a training table. At Division I, it can involve obviously a training table, but usually it involves just healthy snacks at key times throughout the day. I'll talk about ours in just a minute. Another thing that can be done, and again, these are just ideas for you. You can work with your campus food provider, and you can negotiate with them about food swipes or meal swipes for unused meal swipes, potentially, for food insecure athletes. A friend and colleague of mine, Nana Meyer, out at Colorado, it's University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, she was involved with their community garden, and she would take the athletes out there. She would expose them to growing their own gardens and using gardens and teach them culinary skills. At Westchester, we have a garden program, and I have plans over the next year or so to actually get our student athletes more involved with gardening. We also have a resource pantry. There's resource pantry programs across the country. You can see the College and University Food Bank Alliance. That's a great resource if you would like to check that out, because one thing about resource pantries on campus is, one thing about food insecurity is that you have to provide food in a respectful way. Student athletes are obviously going to be sensitive about saying that they're food insecure. So that has to be handled in such a way. So even you may have the resources, but obviously you have to handle it in such a way that the athletes are maintain, obviously, their respect. The support and advisement, SNAP, and food other assistance, our student athlete success program has a lot of advisement. But one thing that could be focused on more, again, is advisement, where someone sits down with athletes and talks to them about the SNAP program and whether or not they can get food assistance. That would be one other thing that can be done. And then last but not least, nutrition education. So we could feed our athletes, but we cannot forget the nutrition education piece. We have to remember that we're not going to, just feeding them is not one thing. We have to teach them, obviously, how to eat healthy. We have to teach them how to prepare food. Again, the whole idea of you can teach them how to grow food, but do they actually know how to prepare it? So the nutrition education piece is a big part of our program at Westchester, not just giving them food, right? Okay. So a little bit of the history behind our program, I don't even remember anymore, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I just started offering nutrition education to the athletes. Approached the athletics program. I'm an alum of Westchester. I played field hockey and lacrosse there, so I had obviously already had a relationship with them. So I just said, I'd like to do some lectures, I'd like to involve my students, and so on and so forth. So it started out with just education. So we would do team talks. And as John had mentioned, if there was an athlete that maybe flagged as high risk, or a coach felt that an athlete needed more one-on-one counseling, we would certainly do that. And then, again, over the years it evolved. We do cafeteria tours. We take the athletes to the cafeteria, or we'll take them to a local grocery store. We do, grocery store tours. We do cooking demos. We just did one 2 weeks ago. We had 20 athletes, and we teach them how to cook a meal, and then we let them eat it. We'll do meal plans for them. We do dietary supplement. That's a big one. Obviously, we talk to them about dietary supplements, and we'll review their supplements that they are either interested in or already taking, and we obviously educate them on that. When I do research, sometimes we'll do bod pod or body composition assessment on them. We happen to have a bod pod. So that's all the nutrition education piece. So that's how we started out. And then I really wanted to get a fueling program going. At the time, I had absolutely no funds, no money to do that. So as John had actually mentioned again, I applied for some internal grant money to run a research project. I just did some pre and post testing, again, some of those measures that I had put up originally. And with that, I purchased enough food to be able to offer, at the time it was a snack bag program, and that's how it all started. So it was based on my research, which I have to do anyway because I'm a faculty member. So I got an internal grant and ran this program with a couple teams, and that's how that started. And I started getting coach buy-in, and basically I did that for a few semesters. And you can see with the fueling program, what we have is what's called a mobile fueling program model, where we have, and I have some pictures that I'll show you, we have mobile fueling carts that we take to the court or to the locker rooms or to the tennis courts or to practices, and we roll up with, and it's full of healthy snacks. And it's usually pre, during, post practice. Sometimes it's games. Tennis prefers to have them for games. It depends on what the needs of the athletes are. Sometimes we have go bags where we pack bags for then when they're on the buses, because they don't want to have to stop and pull off and go. Okay? So who do I use to staff it? Because again, we're talking about on a budget. So I volunteer my time, okay? Again, part of a job of a faculty member is service. So what I'm going to do, though, because not everybody that I'm potentially, and this is, the reason we're doing this, too, is for think of this as potential jobs, right? If you don't have a nutrition program at your school, right, you could use a consultant RD to do this, but I donate my time to do this. Eventually, we were awarded a GA that was split between the College of Health Science and athletics, so we use GA. We have nutrition programs, so we use nutrition students as volunteers because they have to get experiential opportunity, they have to build experiential opportunities to be competitive for their dietetic internship. Some universities have campus RDs or their food service providers also have RDs, so it's another opportunity. So you have a couple opportunities for registered dietitians if you don't actually have faculty that are RDs to be able to run a sports nutrition program. So there's 3 options there. Here's all the ways that you can find money, and this is specifically for a sports nutrition program, but I will actually throw out there, because the audience is mixed here, I could throw this out if you wanted to build more of a strength and conditioning program. So, I know I'm talking about the sports nutrition, but I'm also an exercise physiologist as well. I will tell you that there's no one answer here. I have used literally every single one of these funding sources over the years to get money to run my sports nutrition program. But I believe the NCAA requires 1 full-time strength and conditioning. Right? So again, if you're trying to think about how this might apply to you, if you wanted to build it out and you wanted to try and expand more than 1 strength and conditioning, or again, you want to hire a consultant sports RD because you don't have a faculty on staff, here are various ways that you can get money somehow, okay? So again, research grants. You can go with corporate support. It makes sense with a sports nutrition program that you go to a Wegmans or you go to Whole Foods and you elicit them to be a corporate sponsor, okay? But specifically a food in that case. Our coaches do fundraising, and they were allowed to use some of their fundraising money to pay for the food on the fueling program. Now that's limited, and with COVID it wiped that out, but they were able to do that. You have boosters and alums that are potentially willing to pay for a program that they believe in, or donate to a program that they believe in. Okay, you have a lot of potential there. Again, specifically for sports nutrition, the campus food service provider. Aramark, our food service provider, they just gave me a $50,000 award for this year for our fueling program, because it evolved. Again, it was based in the idea of food insecurity of our student athletes. That was a really wonderful surprise, actually. Athletics department, again, they pay for part of my GA. They have helped me buy a refrigerator. They may, in the future, they may write it as a line item in their budget, hopefully. Kelly doesn't have anything to do with that, so I'm not going to look at her. She's not the decider on that, so I'm not going to pressure. Yeah, the academic affairs, so my side of the house, again, they paid for the other half of my GA, and maybe, so at some point, maybe the provost or the president of the university might actually put it as a line item. You never know. And the last thing is the foundation. The Westchester University has a foundation, which again is the fundraising arm, and that has to do with the boosters and alumni. But they do everything. They go out and get corporate sponsors, and they get again fundraising. Okay, so there's lots of ways. I've used all of those to keep this going 6 years now. So, just to finish up, these are just pictures of some of the athletes. You can see, they got it a little small, but you can see the mobile station. It's literally a tool cart that's on wheels, okay, and it has drawers, and it's full of snacks. And then we have a cooler for the perishable items, and we put ice in it. And athletic training allows us to use the ice from their ice machine. So again, cross-collaboration on everything. And my students roll it out. They make sure things are full. I do all the ordering. We all work together on that. We are, though, I will tell you after again, because I've continued to show the worth of this program, our one building, the building that's at South Campus, it's the College of Health Science departments, is getting refurbished. And I'm being told that we are going to have a centralized fueling station. It's being built like a cafe. It's being built into the refurbished building at South Campus. So all these years later, we have buy-in and buy-in and buy-in, and that's how athletics is going to reinvest back into the program. So that is that.